to the Balters. I'm Dan, and this is Allison. Welcome to Windows 95, Level 3.
On this tape, we're going to show you advanced features of Windows 95. We're going to learn all about Olay and how to work with the good old-fashioned DOS command prompt. We're going to learn about the PC system management tools and about the information services available in Windows 95. Olay helps to make Windows 95 extremely powerful. Olay stands for Object Linking and Embedding. In this section, you're going to learn the difference between pasting between applications and linking and embedding between applications. You'll also learn the differences between linking and embedding, and when to use linking and when to use embedding. You'll see Olay between Notepad and Wordpad, as well as between Word and Excel. Let's get started. Let's go down to the Start button down here on the taskbar, come up to Programs, select Accessories, and select Notepad. Let's go back to Start, to Programs, Accessories, and Wordpad. In Wordpad, I'm going to open up a document. So I'll click on Open right over here on the toolbar, and I'm going to go into My Computer. We're going to go over to Drive C and into the Win95 folder. I want to see, instead of the document files, all of the text files, so I'm going to use this drop down for files of type and select *.txt. I'll scroll over to the right, and we're going to open up a text file called Tips. So I'll double click on Tips. Now I want to go back to Notepad, so I'm going down to my taskbar and I'll click on Notepad. I'm going to type in, this is some text that I've entered in Notepad. Now I want to go back to Wordpad. So I come down to the taskbar and click on Wordpad. I'm going to select some text. Click and drag to select some text, and then I'll select Copy from the toolbar, this icon right up here. Let's go back over to Notepad down on the taskbar, and then in Notepad select Edit, Paste. What I've done here is simply copied and pasted some information from Wordpad into Notepad. When you copy and paste, there's absolutely no link maintained between the source document and application and the destination application and document. On the other hand, when you link and embed, there is a link that's maintained between the source application and the destination application. We cannot link or embed with Notepad. So I'm going to close down Notepad and say, no, I don't want to save the changes to it. I'm going to go over to my Start menu down here, select Programs, Accessories, and Paint. So here we have Paint. I'm going to open up a bitmap file. So I'm going to select File, Open, and we're going to go over to My Computer. So I double click on My Computer, go to Drive C, and go into the Win95 directory. We're going to come over and select our Win95 bitmap over here and select Open. So here we have our Win95 bitmap. I can scroll over and look at various parts of it. I'm going to maximize. Now that I'm looking at a part of the bitmap, I'm going to adjust myself so that I can see pretty much this whole Windows 95 flag here. I want to take this bitmap instead of copying it and pasting it from Paint into Wordpad, I want to link to this bitmap from within Wordpad. So I'm going to close down Paint right now. Before we go any further, it's important to understand the difference between embedding and linking. We'll get a lot of practice with both embedding and linking, but what you need to know is that when you embed, you actually make a copy of the original object and you place that copy into your document. On the other hand, when you link, you're actually just creating a reference to the original file on disk. We'll take a better look at how this all affects us within the Windows 95 environment. Before we go any further, we're going to do two things. First, we're going to maximize this Wordpad application. Secondly, we're going to save this document under a different name so we don't affect the original tips document. So I'm going to come up to the File menu and select Save As. I'm going to save this under another name. We're going to call this Our Great Tips. And then go ahead and click on Save. You now should see Our Great Tips on the title bar indicating that this is our file name. What I want to do is insert that bitmap somewhere right in here. To do that, I come up to the Insert menu and select Object. I want to insert an object. All of the objects that are listed here are the objects that are part of my Windows 95 registry. Every time that you install a software product from within Windows 95, it adds an entry to the registry if that application is OLE compliant. In other words, if it supports object linking and embedding. We want to create an object or insert an object from File. So I'm going to select Create from File. I now have the opportunity to browse my files on disk. I'm going to select Browse. We're going to go find that same bitmap that we just looked at. I showed it to you in Paint so that we could see what it looked like. So we're going to come over all the way over to the right until you can see Win95, and then we'll select Insert. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to link to that bitmap object. So we're not actually creating a copy of the file, but instead we're just linking out to the file on disk, to this file Win95, win95.bmp. So I've selected Link. I'm going to click on OK. Here within Wordpad, I can actually see a representation of my bitmap file. And we can see that it's quite large. I'm going to scroll back over to the left. And you can see this bitmap is taking up quite a bit of room. Well, now that I have it here in Wordpad, I can size it and manipulate it and move it around. So we're going to make it a little bit smaller so that it's easier to work with. I'm going to come over to the sizing handle in the upper left-hand corner and click and drag down and to the right to size my bitmap. Don't worry if yours isn't the same size as mine. What I want you to see is that we have sized the bitmap. To learn a little bit more about linking, we're going to double-click on this object. Now realize we did not make a copy of the object. We're linked to the original file on disk. So when I double-click on this object, watch what happens. Double-clicking on the object, I actually load the Paint application, and here we can see our bitmap. If I make changes to this bitmap right here, I'm making changes to the original Win95 BMP file on disk. So realize if you make any changes, you are changing the original bitmap. This is because we're linked. I'm going to close down Paint. And I'm going to delete this object. Again, I'm going to come up to the Insert menu and select Object. Go down to Create from File and grab that same file again. So I'm browsing, I'm I'm going to go all the way over to the right and select the Win95 bitmap and select Insert. This time I'm not going to link, I'm going to embed. Windows 95 is actually going to make a copy of the original object and place the copy within Wordpad. So here we are. I'm going to scroll all the way over to the left and all the way up and size the object again. And size it even smaller. So here you can see the object again, but watch what happens this time when we double click on the object. This time we get something called in-place activation. I have a copy of the original object within this file. So what I'm looking at right here is the copy, and I'm actually looking at the Paint program even here within Wordpad. Notice my title bar says Wordpad. Down here I can see the other Wordpad information, but in here I can see the bitmap and the menu bar and toolbar of the application from which this object came. So let's see what we can do. For example, I can come over and select this can of spray paint or airbrush over here. I'm going to make my airbrush thick right down here. Going to pick this pink color right over here and then do some handiwork. So I'm adding to, or possibly ruining, this bitmap. But it doesn't really matter. The reason it doesn't matter is I'm only changing this copy. I'm not changing the original on disk. I'm going to go over and select this paintbrush and pick a brush shape and pick another color and do some more handiwork. I made a change so you can see that it's obvious. Now when I click back over anywhere in my document, I'd like you to watch this menu bar and my toolbars. And now you can see that I get the menu bar and toolbar instead of from Paint, I get the menu bar and toolbar from Wordpad. And this object is within this document. So to recap, when we link, we're just creating a reference to the original file on disk. When we embed, we're making a copy of the object and placing that copy within our document. Next, we're going to take a look at linking and embedding from Word to Excel. Let's close down Wordpad. I'm going to right mouse click on the taskbar and select Close. And yes, I want to save changes to our great tips. Telling me I'm about to save the document in text-only format, which will remove all formatting. And it's asking how I'd like to save this document. I'm going to save it actually as a Word 6 document, and we'll open this document back up from Microsoft Word. And I'm going to use that same file name and replace the original file. Let's launch both Word and Excel. I'm going to right mouse click on the desktop, select New, and I want to create a new Word document. We're going to call this new Word document Very Rich Document. I'm going to right mouse click on the desktop again, select New, and I want Microsoft Excel Worksheet. And this one is going to be Very Rich Spreadsheet. Let's double click on our Word document. We're launching Word. And there's our Very Rich document. I'm going to temporarily minimize Word and double click on my Very Rich Spreadsheet. If you get this dialog right here, you can close it down. And here we are in our very rich spreadsheet. So we have Word and Excel both loaded with our very rich document and our very rich spreadsheet. Over here in the spreadsheet, I'm just going to type in some information. If you don't know how to use Excel, don't be very concerned, but I'm just going to type in JAN and use this fill handle right over here to fill across. Type in total and put in some information. Again, if you don't know how to use Excel, just do whatever you'd like right here. Just fill some information into the cells. I'm going to select this information and I copied it across. And we're going to do some auto summing. And now we have some information in our spreadsheet. I'm going to come up and click on Save. So I've now saved that work. I'm going to go back over to Microsoft Word. In Word, we're going to type in some information. I'm going to say this is some budget information for the upcoming year. Here I want to insert an object. I want to create from File. I'm going to go out and browse. And I'm going to select my very rich spreadsheet right here and click on OK. I can link or I can embed. We're going to start out by embedding. So I'm going to select OK. So I've embedded this spreadsheet right here within my Word document. We can double click on the spreadsheet just like we did when we were in Wordpad, or we can right mouse click on it and select Edit Worksheet. At this point, we once again get in-place activation. Notice that I have Excel's menu bar and toolbar. For example, I can highlight these cells right here and select bold, and then center, and I can highlight these cells right here and select currency. And I can even change the number of decimal points. So you can see that there's quite a bit that we can do right from here. In fact, we have all of Excel's functionality. So this is an embedded spreadsheet object. I'm going to click off of the object, and we're going to add some information. So I'm going to type down here, this is some more budget information, but this information is linked to the original. Again, we'll come up to the Insert menu and select Object. Go over to Create from File and Browse. Let's select that same spreadsheet, very rich spreadsheet, and link. This time if I right mouse click and select Edit Worksheet, if I select Edit Worksheet Link, it brings me over to Excel and to my very rich spreadsheet. I want to show you something. Let's close down Excel. So come down to your taskbar, right mouse click and select Close. Back over here, if we right mouse click on the top object, the embedded object, and select Edit Worksheet, we get our in-place activation, and notice down on the taskbar that Excel is not even running. Now, part of Excel is running. In fact, you need to be legally licensed to use Excel and have access to Excel from your machine, but Excel as a normal application isn't running. On the other hand, when I right mouse click on the bottom object to make it active and select Edit Worksheet Link, this time I actually launch Excel as a separate task. I can go back to Word and go back to Excel. There's also another major difference. I'm going to close down Excel again, this time with the X up here, and say no, I don't want to save any changes. If I make a change to this spreadsheet right up here, I'm only changing the spreadsheet within this document. So let's double click, which is our other way to make a change. Type in the number 500 for March phone, and then let's double click on the bottom object. You can see that the March phone is not 500. But on the other hand, if I come over to January phone, change it to 777, and let's close down Excel. So right mouse click and select close. I'm asked if I want to save my changes. If I say yes, back over here in the word processing document, it does say 777. Furthermore, I can even close down Word. So let's close down Word, right mouse click and select close. And yes, we want to save our changes. Let's open up our spreadsheet without opening up our document. Let's make another change. Let's make February 111 and close down Excel. Remember, we aren't even in Word right now. And now let's open up our very rich document. And there we can see the 111 automatically appears. We created another document earlier in Wordpad, and I told you we'd take a look at it here from within Word. So let's go over to Open up top here. And we're going to look, instead of in My Documents, I'm going to use the up one level. You can see we're on D drive right now. I'm going to go over to the C drive, into the Win95 directory, and instead of just looking at the Word documents, since our file had the TXT extension, we're going to look at text files so we can see all of the files with TXT extension, and we're going to open up our great tips over here. So I'm going to double click on it. And there's our great tips. Here's the original object, which if you remember, this was our embedded object. If I double click on it, we're now getting in-place activation within Word. I click off of it, and we get the normal Word menu. A couple more important tips. You might have wondered when I selected Open, why I selected text files, even though if you remember correctly, we had to save that text file as a Word document in order to keep the graphic. When you do an open and you select text files, it's only determining what extensions that Windows 95 and Word look for. It's not really interpreting what type of file is out there. It's simply using the extension. So I picked text files because our great tips was saved with the extension of TXT. The other thing is we may want to move this particular object around. Right now that's difficult. What we need to do is frame the object. So to frame the object, with it selected, I right mouse click and select Frame Picture. I'm asked if I want to switch to Page Layout View, which is just a different view in Word. I'm going to select Yes. Once the object is framed, the text can wrap around it, and I can take the picture and move it around wherever I'd like. Until I've framed it, I don't have the same flexibility. And there you can see our document. If I File Close, I'm asked if I want to save changes. I'll say yes. And it's still called ourgreattips.txt, but it's a Word document. Let's File Close out of this one as well and say yes, we want to save changes to it. And I'm going to close Word. And now we're back here at our desktop, and we can see our very rich document and very rich spreadsheet. In this section, you learned all about OLE, object linking and embedding. You learned the difference between pasting, linking, and embedding, and saw the uses of each of them. You also learned about in-place activation. We used Paint and Wordpad, as well as Word and Excel, to learn about the features of OLE. What I have to say about all this is, OLE, we're done with this section.
Even though Windows 95 is a wonderful graphical computing environment, there may be occasions when you want to get at an MS-DOS command prompt. Well, you do this through an MS-DOS command window. In this next section, we're going to show you how to open a DOS window. We'll show you how to set its properties and how you can cut, copy, and paste between DOS and any Windows programs. We'll show you some of the new features like the change directory command, the start command, and how you can start even Windows programs directly from an MS-DOS prompt. Here at our Windows 95 desktop, let's do a little bit of housekeeping first and clean the desktop up. We have some icons floating around here in nowhere land. So if I right mouse click on the desktop, select Arrange Icons, and I'll select Arrange by Type. And the icons get nicely placed in alignment. Now let's go down to the Start button, and we'll look at the Start menu. Go up to Programs, and over here we'll select MS-DOS prompt, and we'll single click. This allows us to open up an MS-DOS prompt window. As you can see, the default is this size of a window, and we have our title bar and we have our toolbar right here. One of the first things that you'll notice is we have an auto sizing option here. We can allow Windows 95 to automatically adjust the font size based upon the size of our window. Or we can go ahead and choose the size of our window by selecting one of these different dimensions here. The TT that you see on the left-hand side means that these are true type fonts that are used with these particular dimensions. So for example, if we chose 7 by 14 inches and click, we get a large screen, 7 inches by 14. Or we can come up and choose a smaller one, such as 6 by 12, or so on. We could also go ahead, and if we choose Auto, we can manually size, and the fonts will adjust as we go. There are several properties that we can set in a DOS window. Let's go ahead and select 6 by 12. And let's take a look at the icon bar, the toolbar first of all. Coming over here to the right, we have Mark. We'll show you in a minute that you don't even need to use this. We can set an option whereby the mouse pointer will always mark text by default. This is in case that option is turned off. Here we have Mark. Coming over to the right, we have Copy. Moving over one more, we have Paste. This icon over here means full screen. If we click on this, we get a full screen. If we want to go back to a window view, we can take our keyboard, hold down our Alt key, press Enter, and we go back to the original window size. This is a handy little trick. Going further over to the right, the next icon is Properties, which we'll come right back to. Further over, we have Background, and over here we have an A, and this allows us to choose our font. If we click on it, we can go ahead, and this allows us to set font properties. Let's go ahead and click on the X to close this down. Going back over, we can see background options. If we click on this one, let's take a look at MS-DOS prompt properties. These replace PIF files which we used to have to set for MS-DOS programs. We'll click on the Properties icon. And we have 5 tabs to choose from. First, we have the Program tab. This allows us to change the name of the particular icon, in this case MS-DOS. We have our command line argument, as well as a working directory. If we wanted to start this DOS prompt from what is known as a batch file, we could do that here by entering in the name of a file, such as startup .bat, if we had such a file. I'll erase it for now. We could assign a shortcut key here. If we wanted the shortcut key combination, we could simply hit that combination on our keyboard, and that would automatically bring up the DOS prompt. We also need to tell Windows 95 how to run this MS-DOS prompt. We can choose from a normal window, minimized, or maximized. We'll leave it at normal window. And then down here we have a checkbox that says close on exit. This means when the program ends, Windows 95 will automatically close the window. We have an advanced button down here. If we click on this, this has some advanced features which most of the time you probably won't need to use. This is for the old MS-DOS applications that have problems running under Windows or Windows 95, and these are some things you can do to remedy that problem to make sure that they will run no matter what. I'm going to click on Cancel here. And of course we do have the option, we could change the icon. If we didn't like this icon here, we could change to whichever icon we deemed fit. And there are quite a few to choose from. I'm going to go ahead and click on Cancel, and let's proceed to the next tab. The next tab is Font. We have a box here about available types of fonts, and we can choose to have bitmap only, TrueType fonts only available, or we can make both types available. And this depends, the number depends on the type of fonts that are installed on our Windows 95 system. We can choose font size. Right now we have auto. We can go ahead and choose different sizes. You can see down here a font preview as well as a window preview as we keep changing different dimensions of our DOS windows. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at auto. And we'll go ahead and click on the next tab, which is Memory. The Memory tab, again, most often you're going to probably want to leave this alone. If you do play with this, you could render your DOS prompt unusable or your DOS program that you're working with unusable. So unless you know what you're doing, I would recommend to pretty much leave this area alone. This has different settings for conventional memory, expanded memory, extended memory if your DOS programs use this type of memory. Also allows for using the high memory area, the HMA, and it also allows for using DOS protected mode DPMI memory if you have a program that for some reason requires that. Back up to the Screen tab, we have a usage box. This tells Windows 95 how to bring up the MS-DOS window initially, whether it should be full screen or windowed. Of course, you can change it once you've gone ahead and opened up the MS-DOS prompt. We can choose our initial size, we can choose default, or we can choose any number of 25 lines, 43, which is EGA, or 50-line VGA. We'll leave it at default. And under the window box, we can display a toolbar or not, and we can choose to restore settings on startup or not. So if we left the window in a certain size, we can choose to restore these settings the next time we open up a DOS window. As far as performance, we have some fast ROM emulation and dynamic memory allocation. Again, if you're not sure of what these are, I would leave them as at the default. Finally, going up to the Miscellaneous tab, we have a few different options. We have a foreground box which says Allow Screensaver. This will allow the Windows 95 screensaver to take over even if you're working in MS-DOS window, and even if that window happens to be full screen. This was a feature not available in the old Windows 3.1. Going down, we have Background. This says suspend the program if there's a program running in the DOS window and you're not working in it at the moment. This says to suspend the program, not to allow it to continue to process. Idle sensitivity, we can set that low or high. Coming back up under mouse, we have a couple of different modes. Exclusive mode, and we have quick edit mode. The quick edit mode I would recommend because that allows you to easily mark text within a DOS window without having to use the mark icon on the toolbar. Coming down, we have a termination box as warn if still active, That's usually one I would leave checked. And there's another box for fast pasting, for cut and paste. Again, I would leave this checked as a default. There are Windows shortcut keys that will operate under the MS-DOS window. I would leave these unless your particular application program is conflicting, and then you might need to uncheck one or more of these. Once we're done setting these properties, we could go ahead and check and click on Apply to have them applied to this particular DOS window we're working on now. And it says the changes made to memory settings will not take effect until we restart. Since we didn't make any memory setting changes, we can ignore that. We'll click on OK and click on OK down here to get back to our DOS window. If you've never worked with DOS, you may be unfamiliar. Essentially, this is a character-based system where you type in commands and the computer gives you back an output. To see a directory of folders and files, we would type simply dir and hit the Enter key on the keyboard. And we'd get a listing of all of our folders and files inside of our Win95 folder. As you can see right here, we're on our C drive under Win95. Remember we set the quick edit mode? What we can do is we can highlight text, and notice I can highlight as much text as I want with the mouse. And then what I can very simply do is come up and I can select the copy icon. And I've gone ahead and copied that text. To see what we've done, we can go ahead and go over to the Start menu, and we can select a program such as Notepad and paste that text directly into this Windows program. Here we are in Notepad in a blank document. Click on Edit and we'll click on Paste. And we've just gone ahead and pasted in all that information from MS-DOS. This can be very handy. We can also go the other way. We can also cut or copy information from a Windows program like Notepad and paste it into an MS-DOS application. I can go ahead and highlight some of this text, come up to the Edit menu. I can select Cut, so we'll cut that away. And let's go ahead and minimize Notepad. We'll go back to our MS-DOS window. We can run an MS-DOS application. There's an application that comes with Windows 95. It's called Edit. We can simply type in the letters EDIT for Edit and hit our Enter key to execute this MS-DOS program. Now what we can do, we can paste in the text that we cut from Notepad by selecting the paste icon right here. And notice Windows 95 is pasting in the text that we took from Notepad. So we can go back and forth both ways, copying and pasting between old DOS applications and new Windows or Windows 95 applications. There's some new MS-DOS prompt command line features that makes the MS-DOS command prompt a lot more integrated with Windows 95. Let's see how these features work. First, what we need to do is close down this MS-DOS application so we can get back to our MS-DOS prompt. Or if we wanted to, we can simply minimize this DOS window, leave it running by clicking on the minimize button up here in the upper right hand corner, just like any other Windows 95 type of window. If I click on it, it becomes minimized and I see it down here on the taskbar. Now we can go ahead and simply open up a brand new MS-DOS command window by coming over to Programs and again selecting MS-DOS prompt. And we're back at an MS-DOS window. Let me make it a little bit larger. And so now we can see things a little bit better. One of the nice new things about Windows 95 and the DOS command prompt is that it lets us traverse folders very easily. Let me show you what I mean. Notice that we're here in the folder called Win95. It's not represented graphically because this is MS-DOS, but it's the same folder as you saw when we would open up My Computer or the Explorer. And notice we're on the C drive right here. If I want to go back to just my C drive, I would type CD, that stands for Change Directory, and a backslash. That means it'll take me back to the main folder of the C drive. So if I hit enter, now I'm back. I'm no longer in Win95. I'm now back simply on my C drive. If I do a directory of my folders, I can see the folders that are in my C drive. Now I did a dir star dot. That means I'm only seeing folders. I'm not seeing files. If we want to go into folders, what we do is cd for change directory or change folder, and type the name of the folder we wish to go into, such as Win95. If I do a directory of my folders that are within my Win95 folder, I can see what folders there are. I'm going to go over to my D drive, my other hard drive, by hitting a D and then a colon and hitting enter. And I'm going to go ahead and I want to take a look and go into some of my folders. I have a folder called Office 95. I'm going to type cd for change directory, Office 95. And I'll take a look at what's inside of this folder. And we can see there are some folders, other folders and directories. I'm going to go into Excel. Again, I type cd Excel for the Excel folder, hit enter, and I'm in Office 95 Excel. Now, if I want to continue, I can continue to go into more subfolders. If I do a dir star dot, I can see there's a library folder. You can do cd library, do a dir again, and there's one more file, there's one more folder called analysis. I can do cd analysis. And now you can see that I am in my D drive, and I'm in the folder called Office 95, and a subfolder of Excel, and a subfolder of that called Library, and a subfolder of that called Analysis. So you could say I'm 1, 2, 3, basically 4 or 5 levels deep here. What I can do with the new change directory command is I can go ahead and I can go backwards as many levels as I like. It used to be you could only do cd ... and drop back one level, and that was it. Let me go back into analysis. Let me show you what you can do. Now, if I want to drop back, let's say 3 levels or 4 levels, I can do that. I can do cd ... for 1 ... that would get me back to library. If I do another dot, that will get me back to Excel, and let's say that's where I'd like to stay. So now I can do cd ... and that gets me back to Excel. A nice handy feature if you use the MS-DOS prompt. The final thing that we're going to look at for using the MS-DOS prompt under Windows 95 is the start command. So we're back here in our DOS window, and we're in the directory, we're in the drive D, and we're in the folder Excel, which is underneath the folder Office 95. If we do a directory, this shows us again the contents of our folder called Excel. This is showing us in DOS. But now under Windows 95, there's a new feature called Start. If we type Start and then a period, a single period, and hit enter, watch what happens. We get a window showing us a graphical representation of all of the files inside of this folder called Excel. We can actually use a Windows 95 window to see all of our folders and files. And we could actually double click and open up a program. Just like that. Let's close it down. And let's close down this window here. If we do start space and a single period, that shows us our current folder that we're in, the contents of the current folder that we're in. If we type start and 2 dots and hit enter, this will show us the parent folder. Remember, we were in Office 95 Excel, we typed start and 2 dots, so we're now seeing the parent folder of Excel, which of course is Office 95. We have full functionality, by the way, just like we do if we were using My Computer or the Explorer. If we type the backspace key right now, we'll go up 1 level. And if we typed it again, of course, we could keep going until we hit the very top level. So it has the same functionality as if you were doing this graphically, only we're starting it from MS-DOS. In fact, if I go ahead and hold down my Shift key and click on the X, I'll close down all of my children in my parent window. The start command has a couple of other functions. First of all, since we're here in Excel, we can do a dir, a directory of all the files that are programs that have the extension of exe. Now again, this could never be done in the old Windows. If you type the name of a program like Excel here at the DOS prompt and hit enter, we can start Excel directly from a DOS prompt. That's kind of new and nifty. I can close out of it. One other thing we can do, I'm going to change back to my C drive by typing the letter C and a colon and hitting the enter key. And I'm back here at my C drive where I left off earlier. We're back here in my C drive and my Win95 folder. I'm going to look for files that are paint picture files. Remember, BMP files. I'm going to type dir star.bmp. And notice we have a few different paint files. If you remember that one, we have one here called Win95. And of course we have all the file details, the size of it in bytes, the date it was created, the time, and its Windows 95 name, as well as its MS-DOS name. The MS-DOS names are here on the left. The Windows 95 names, which can be long file names, of course, are here on the right. Let's say I want to open up one of these BMP files, one of these picture files, but I don't remember or don't know what program is used to work with them. I can simply type start and the name of the file, such as Win95, and hit enter. Windows 95 is saying it doesn't understand Win95. It doesn't know what type of file that it is, so it can't open it. We'll type start Win95 period BMP because it's a BMP picture file. Now let's hit enter. Now Windows 95 knows what type of file that it is, and it goes ahead, since BMP files are associated with Paint, it goes ahead and opens up the Paint application. Just like that, we can open up a file from DOS. Now we can go ahead and shut down the Paint program, come up to the X and click on it to shut down Paint. We're back at one of our 2 MS-DOS prompts that we currently have running. There's a couple of ways to shut down MS-DOS prompts. One way, of course, would be to click on the X in the upper right-hand corner. Another way is if you have your hands already on the keyboard and don't want to remove them, simply type the word exit and hit enter. And that will go ahead and close down that window. We can come over here to our notepad, right mouse click, select close, and we don't want to save the file. And we can do the same thing actually for MS-DOS. We have a program running, so it may or may not let us close it down. I'm going to select close. Windows is telling us it cannot shut down this program automatically since it's a DOS program, and it recommends that we exit the program normally. So we're going to go ahead and obey because it could cause problems if we don't. If Windows 95 forces the program to end, it could create problems for our document if we value the document that we're editing. We'll select no. We'll click on the taskbar to open up the application. We'll, using our Alt key on our keyboard, type Alt F and select X for exit. And it's telling us the file has not been saved. Do we want to save it? We'll say N for no. We type Alt F and select X for exit, and we exit out of the MS-DOS editor. Again, we can go ahead and either type exit here, or if we like, we can come up and click on the X to close the window down. And we're back at the desktop. We've just seen some ways that we can work with MS-DOS command prompt windows directly through Windows 95. We saw how we can open a DOS window and how we can set properties for it. Then we took a look at how we can cut, copy, and paste between DOS applications as well as Windows applications. We saw some new features of the CD or change directory command under DOS, and a new feature for Windows 95, which is a start command, which can start your Windows programs directly from the MS-DOS prompt.
In this section, we're going to learn about Windows 95 PC System Management Tools. We're going to learn about the advanced file management features. We're going to learn how to defragment your disk, run the Scan Disk Utility, work with disk compression, and back up and restore our files. Let's take a look at some of the advanced file management features. Go over to your Start button on your taskbar, come up to Programs, and go down to the Windows Explorer. From the Windows Explorer, if I wanted to explore my 3.5-inch floppy drive, all I need to do is place my mouse pointer over 3.5-inch floppy A:, and click with my right mouse button or non-dominant mouse button. There's various things that I can do from right here. I can explore the disk, open it, find, copy the disk, and even format the disk. I can also create a shortcut to the disk, or I can view the properties of my A drive. I'm going to look at properties. We can see use space and free space of our floppy diskette. Now right now I don't have a disk in the drive. I'm going to go ahead and cancel. And we're putting a disk in our floppy drive. I'm going to right mouse click again and select Properties Now. You can see that we get a different picture. Use space and free space. So we can see how many bytes are used and how many bytes are free, as well as the capacity. And we even get a picture of what this looks like graphically. If I right mouse click on this blue section right here, and it says what's this, if I select what's this, it tells me that this shows how much space on the disk is used in blue and how much is free in pink. I'm going to come over to Tools, this Tools tab right here. Notice there's some things that we can do from here. We can look at our error checking status, our backup status, and our defragmentation status. We're going to work with all of these later. For now, let's select Cancel. Over on Drive C, I can also click with my right mouse button. Notice that I can even format Drive C through here, although I don't recommend that you do this. I'm going to select Properties. Here we can see our C drive. We can see the used space and the free space, and again, we could use the same tools on the drive. I'm going to go ahead and select Cancel to come out of here. Let's close down the Explorer and see another way that we can work with these advanced file management features. I can go into My Computer up here in the upper left-hand corner, double-click on it, and once again I can see my 3.5-inch floppy drive. Right mouse click and go down to Properties. This is just another way to access the same information. You can go ahead and select OK or Cancel. Same thing, I can look at my D drive right now. Right mouse click and select Properties. And now we're looking at the D drive. And we can get the tools for the D drive. We've just taken a look at some of the advanced file management features. Now we're going to use one of the features to format a floppy disk. Go ahead and right mouse click on a 3.5-inch floppy. And if you're following along, you're going to want to make sure that you have a disk in your drive that you don't care about. In other words, one that you don't mind if all of the information goes away. because when we format, we're going to lose all of the information on the disk. Go ahead and select Format. We can select some information such as the capacity, the type of format that we're doing, the label for the disk, whether we want to display summary information, copy system files, and so forth. This information right here, quick versus full, if you do a quick format, if somebody were to grab that disk and try to read the old information off of it, if they had certain utilities, they would be able to get at the information. But quick is the fastest, so if you don't care if somebody could possibly read the information, you always want to select quick. On the other hand, full totally wipes the information off of the disk. Copy system files just places system files onto this disk. We're going to select quick and then select start. The really nice thing about formatting in Windows 95 is once I say OK, I can continue doing whatever else I want to while the formatting is taking place. I'm getting some information saying I cannot do a quick format because this disk has never been formatted before, its capacity does not match, or there's no disk in the drive. In my case, this disk has never been formatted before. So I'm going to go ahead and do a full format. I'll say OK. And now I'm going to come down to my Start button, and we'll go over to Programs, and we'll select MS-DOS prompt. While I'm formatting this disk, I can type in dir and look at a directory. Notice the formatting is still occurring. I can even start Programs and run Microsoft Excel. And I could begin creating a worksheet. And meanwhile, my formatting is taking place in the background. In fact, we can even see its progress. So I could type in some information in each cell, and this is a really nice feature of Windows 95. If you have some disks to format, you can format them in the background while you continue to work and while you're productive. I'm going to close down Excel and say no, that I don't want to save changes, and type exit to get out of my DOS prompt. And here we are back at our format, and it's moving along just fine. Once the format is complete, you get a dialog box indicating the format results. We can see our total disk space, how many bytes are used by system files, whether or not Windows 95 found any bad sectors, and how many bytes in each allocation unit and total allocation units. You can even see the serial number. Go ahead and select Close. And we can close again because we're not going to format any additional disks. Now we're back here at my computer, and go ahead and click on the X to close down my computer. Now that you've learned to format a disk, we're going to learn how to use the Scan Disk utility to evaluate our hard disk and look for problems on the disk. It's important that you run Scan Disk regularly. It can find problems with your hard disk early, so that rather than having your hard disk crash, you can be warned of impending problems. To access the Scan Disk utility, come down to your Start button, select Programs, go into Accessories, go into System Tools, and select Scan Disk. You can scan drive C, D, or E, and I'm going to scan drive C. You can do a standard test or a thorough test. Standard just checks files and folders for errors. Thorough performs the standard test and then scans the disk surface for errors. If you really want to check out the integrity of your hard disk, you're going to want to pick thorough. This will test the physical disk and make sure there's no problems with it. For right now, I'm going to select standard. You can also indicate that you would like Windows 95 to automatically fix errors for you. This means that if it finds any problems, it's going to go ahead and fix those problems. I'm going to select automatically fix errors. Let's go into advanced for a moment. Advanced determines your display summary, whether or not you're creating a log file and whether it's replacing or appending, what it does with cross-linked files, lost file fragments, and what it checks files for. So you can set this information depending upon what you want Windows 95 to do if there is a problem and what information you want Windows 95 to provide you with. I'm going to leave everything as is and select OK. Now I'm going to select Start to begin the scan disk process. Goes out and checks all of my folders. And it's checking what's called the file allocation tables. So it's checking folders and file allocation tables. File allocation tables are like indexes that keep track of all the information on your disk. In my case, ScanDisk found some errors on my drive and fixed them. I can see my total disk space and how much I have in bad sectors. I can also see how much I have in folders as well as hidden files. I can see how many bytes I have in user files and how much is available on my disk. I see how many bytes in each allocation unit, my total units, and my available units. I'm going to select Close. And I could now run ScanDisk on a different disk, or I can close. I'm going to select Close, and now I'm back at my desktop. As I mentioned, it's important to run ScanDisk regularly. ScanDisk can find and correct problems with your hard disk. Next, we're going to take a look at the Defragmentation Utility. As you work with your computer and save files, Windows 95 tries to find available space on your hard disk. It doesn't always find contiguous space when it's writing a file to disk. This slows down your computer immensely. You should run the Defragmentation Utility regularly. This will try to place all of the files on your disk out contiguously so that the computer can work with them more easily and rapidly. To get to the Defragmentation Utility, let's select Start, go into Programs, Accessories, System Tools, and this time select Disk Defragmenter. I can defragment drive C, D, or E. I'm going to select C and then click on OK. I'm given a message saying drive C is only 4% fragmented, that I don't need to defragment the drive now. If I want to defragment it anyways, click Start. Now I'm going to take a look at the advanced features. So I click on Advanced. I can do a full defragmentation, both files and free space, defragment files only, or consolidate free space only. I can indicate whether or not I want to check the drive for errors while I'm doing the defrag, and when I want to use these options, this time only, or save them and use them every time. This time, since we just checked our drive for errors, I'm going to remove this check, and I only want these options for this time only. I'm going to go ahead and select OK, and even though I'm told that my disk is not fragmented, I'm going to go ahead and select Start. We can see that my hard disk is being defragmented, and we're getting a status report. It's a very good idea to have your hard disk backed up before you perform the defragmentation process. You never know exactly what might happen during the process, although it does work extremely well. If you'd like, you could continue to work while the defragmentation process is occurring. So I could come over to the Start menu down here, select Programs, and run Microsoft Word. I'm going to restore Word and move it out of the way. And what's happening is because I'm working on my computer, sometimes it's actually starting over here. You can see it starting over, and it certainly does slow down the process. So in general, I recommend that you don't do anything else while the defragmentation process is occurring. Especially, you probably don't want to be creating files, but it won't hurt anything. I've closed down Word, and we're back here just watching the defragmentation take place. I'm going to look at Show Details and see what it has to offer. This is actually a schema or map of my hard disk. This is really neat because I can see how the files are laid out on my hard disk. If I want to see a legend, I can see a legend of what exactly is going on. The optimized and unoptimized data, free space, data that won't be moved, bad or damaged data, data that's currently being read, and data that's currently being written. So we can just place this legend over here and continue to watch the defragmentation process taking place. So for example, all of these white areas are my free space. All of this aqua blue belongs at the beginning of the drive. When this process is complete, all of the free space will be together and all of the files will be together. I'm going to go ahead and close the legend down, and we'll continue to let the defragmentation process complete. I get a dialog box telling me that the defragmentation of drive C is complete. Do I want to quit the disk defragmenter? I'm done defragmenting for today, so I'm going to select yes. I'm back at my desktop. It's a common problem these days to run out of hard disk space. Well, Windows 95 helps you to solve this problem. Windows 95 comes complete with a disk compression utility. In order to find the disk compression utility called Drive Space that ships with Windows 95, go to your Start menu, select Programs, Accessories, and System Tools, and what we want is Drive Space, our disk compression utility. We can pick which drive we want to compress, C, D, E, and even our floppy. If I go up to the Drive menu, I can see Compress, Uncompress, Adjust Free Space, and Properties. I could also format through here. I could also go into Advanced, Mount, Unmount, Create Empty, Delete, Change Ratio, Change Letter, and so forth. These are some very advanced disk utilities that really are only used to change the entire setup of your hard disk. What we might want to select is to compress a particular drive, such as drive C. Now what I'm going to do right now is compress my floppy drive. So I'm going to select my 3.5-inch floppy, go into the Drive menu, and select Compress. It says compressing drive A will make it appear larger and contain more free space. I can go into Options. Windows 95 is going to create a new uncompressed drive using certain settings. In this case, we'll get drive H. I'm going to select OK and then select Start. Notice I'm going to get 1.78 megs after compression. I'm going to check my A drive for errors and then go ahead and compress it so that I get more information available to me on the disk. Once the compression process is complete, Windows 95 will ask you to reboot your machine. Remember, you're generally going to run this process on a hard disk drive in order to get more space on the drive. You should always back up your hard disk before you complete this process. It's hard to say exactly how much additional hard disk space you'll get, but it will most likely be quite substantial. In other words, you'll be able to store a lot more information on your hard disk. I just mentioned that you should back up your computer. Well, Windows 95 helps you to do this. I'm going to exit out of Drive Space, go over to the Start menu, go to Programs, Accessories, and System Tools, and select Backup. I'm told some information about Microsoft Backup. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. It says Backup has created the following full backup file set for me, full system backup. And it says to back up my entire hard drive, I need to use this file set. And it's configured to include all registry files which are necessary for my system to work properly when restored. So do not use this file set for incremental or partial backups. The backup set that's created by using this file set is intended for disaster recovery. So I'm going to say OK. What we're going to do here in a moment, I'm getting a message saying that Microsoft Backup did not detect a tape drive. I don't have a tape drive in my machine. If you have a tape drive and get this message, you want to make sure that your tape drive is set up and configured properly. I'm just going to select OK here. I don't want to back up my entire computer. Instead, I just want to back up a little bit of information. If you're going to back up your entire computer, you're really going to want to have a tape drive. So I'm just going to back up some selected information to a floppy disk. I want to look at my C drive, so I'm going to click on this plus sign right here. This opens up the file folder structure of my C drive. I'm going to go into my CD-ROM directory, and we can see that I have some files here. Here's the files that are in my CD-ROM directory. I want to back up these files. In order to select this entire folder to back up, I'm going to click on this little box right here. Notice when I do that, I get a check mark for CD-ROM, and all of the file names within that folder automatically get selected. That's all that I want to back up. If I wanted to back up additional folders, all I would need to do would be click to select those additional folders. If I change my mind, I click again, and it deselects that particular folder. So I've selected this one folder, and now I'll click on Next Step. I'm asked to select a device or location. I want to back up to my A drive, my floppy drive. So I'm going to pick A, and then click on Start Backup. I'm going to type in our special backup set. We could even password protect this if we wanted to. I'm going to click on OK. Windows 95 is preparing the backup operation, and now it's backing up the information. The operation's complete, so I click on OK and OK again. There's one more backup option that we want to take a look at. That's whether or not the computer is going to compare the backed up data with the hard disk after it's done with the backup process. Looking back at Settings and Options within the Backup utility, we go over to Backup. There's some things that we can change, some configurations about backup. Whether we want to quit the backup after the operation's finished, whether we want to perform a full or an incremental meaning just the files that have changed since the last full backup, and also whether we want to verify backup data by automatically comparing files after backup is finished. I strongly recommend that you always select this option. Otherwise, you don't really know that the files were backed up correctly. I also recommend that you do use data compression. What this means is that it's going to, as efficiently as possible, compress the data on the backup media. We can also pick whether we want format when needed on tape backups, always erase on tape backups, and always erase on floppy disk backups. So there's quite a bit you can do to configure your backup. I'm going to click on OK. Just so that you know that it's available, we can also come over to this Compare tab, and we can at any time compare a backup set to the actual data on the computer. So this is something that's available to you. Let's go ahead and close out of Microsoft Backup. If you were to back up again right now, it would look a little bit different, because now, in addition to backing up the data, it would go out and verify that the backup was performed correctly. Now that we've backed up successfully, we're going to take a look at how we could restore our files. We go into the Start menu, Programs, Accessories, System Tools, and we go into Backup. So remember, even though you're doing a restore, you still need to go into Backup. We'll end up back where we were a moment ago. Just click on OK, and here we are, as if we were going to back up. What I want to do is restore. What I want to restore from is my 3.5-inch floppy. So I can pick my 3.5-inch floppy and we can see our backup set and when it was created, date and time. Now I'll click on Next Step. Windows 95 went out and read the contents of the backup set. If I want to take a better look, if I double-click right here, I can see CD-ROM, the CD-ROM folder, and if I double-click again, I can see the names of the files that I can restore. So I'm going to go ahead and select that I want to restore all of those files. Now I also could have done that through right here, or even through right here. So however I'd like, I select the files that I want to restore. Now I want to start the restore. And it's restoring the files that I selected. It says errors occurred during the operation. Do I want to view them? I'm going to say yes. Here's our error log. The reason that we got errors is because all of the files that we're trying to restore have the same or an older date than the disk file, the file on disk. So the disk file's date is newer. I'm going to go ahead and close out of here and say, okay, no problem. And if I go back over to Restore, we can actually change under Settings. We can change the options for Restore. And some of the options are whether we want to quit backup after operation is finished, the original locations, whether we want to restore to original location, alternate location, and so forth. Whether we want to verify restored data by automatically comparing files after the restore is finished, and when we want to overwrite files. Never overwrite files, overwrite older files only, or always overwrite. Well, I'm going to change this to overwrite, and I'm going to select prompt before overwriting, and then click on OK. We're going to try the same process again. I'm going to restore from my A drive, our special backup set, and select Next Step. There's my files. Remember, all I need to do is pick my CD-ROM folder and click on Start Restore. This time, I should get asked whether or not I want to replace the file. So it's telling me, do I want to overwrite it? And I'm going to say yes. And yes again, and yes again. Operation complete without any errors this time. And now we could back up or restore something else. What we're going to do is close down Microsoft Backup, and we're done. In this section, you learned quite a bit about the PC system management tools. You learned some advanced file management techniques, as well as how to defragment and scan your hard disk for problems. You learned about the disk compression utility and how to back up and restore your files.
We now live in the information age, and Windows 95 can help you to take full advantage of it. In this section, we'll show you how you can add, set up, and remove modems. We'll then show you how you can send a fax from any Windows program. Finally, we'll wrap up showing you the new Microsoft Network, an online service that can help you get right on that information superhighway. Here we are at the familiar Windows 95 desktop. We're going to come down to the Start button to get our Start menu, select Settings, and then we're going to go into Control Panel. And the Control Panel folder comes up. You'll notice we have many different items in here. Accessibility options, add hardware, add remove programs, etc. And a new feature in Control Panel for Windows 95 is Modems. Right down here. Modems are added and removed from Windows 95 very much like printers are added and removed. We'll double click on the Modems icon to open up the Modems folder. And we have a Modems property dialog box. You'll notice we have two tabs, General and Diagnostics. Let's go back and click on the General tab. Windows 95 tells us that the following modems have been set up on our computer right here. Supra 144 Plus or 144 LC. And then we have some option buttons down here, some command buttons actually, Add, Remove, and Properties. If we go into Properties, we'll see the properties of this particular modem. We'll see that it's set up to use our COM1 port on this computer. We can set our speaker volume high or all the way off. We'll leave it about there. And we can set the maximum speed, or the bits per second. Right now it's defaulting to 19.2 because that's the fastest that our particular modem can run. And we could select connect only at this speed. Let's go ahead and click on cancel. What I'm going to do first of all is show you how you can remove a modem. If you've purchased a different modem or for whatever reason want to remove your modem from Windows 95, this is how we can do it. With the one modem selected here, we'll click the remove button. And Windows 95 removes the modem just like that. Let's go ahead and close down from our modem's property dialog, and then let's go ahead and double click to go back in. Now let's see how we can add a new modem. As soon as we click on the modems icon, because we have no modems installed right now, Windows 95 gives us the install new modem window. It says that Windows will now try to detect our modem. Before we continue, if the modem is attached to our computer, we need to be sure it's turned on. If it's an internal modem, that's not a problem. If it's an external, you need to make sure all the cables are connected and that it's turned on before we proceed. The second thing Windows 95 tells us that we need to quit any programs that may be using the modem right now. We're not using any other programs, so we're fine. We could go ahead and select Don't Detect My Modem. I will select it, but let's see if Windows 95 can find out what type of modem we actually have. And we'll click on Next. Generally speaking, Windows 95 is pretty good at this. They've basically perfected it, and they have a very large database of all popular modems that are now on the market. And the Verify Modem window pops up telling us that Windows 95 found a modem on our communications port number 1, also known as COM1. And indeed it is. It is definitely a Supra 144. So it found the proper one. If this modem is not correct, we can click on Change. If it is correct, we're going to select the Next button. And now Windows 95 tells us that our modem has been set up successfully. If we want to change any settings, we can double-click on the modem's icon, of course, in Control Panel. Let's go ahead and finish this process by clicking Finish. And now the modem's property dialog pops up. Once again, we can see our Supra 144 modem is selected here. Now, if we wish, we can go ahead and select some dialing properties. Let's click on the Dialing Properties button. And Windows 95 is asking us, where are we dialing from? Since we had installed a modem earlier, Windows 95 is remembering the information that was put in during the initial installation of Windows 95. It says we're dialing from the default location which was entered at installation time. If we have a different location, we could click on the New button and enter in a new location. Let's click on Cancel for now. We can enter in our area code. It happens to be 801 where we are right now, so we'll leave that alone. And it's asking us what country we're in, and we can select any country in the list. Of course, we'll go ahead. You can see all the countries. We'll go ahead and leave it at United States. The next items are asking us, how do we dial from this location? Do we need to get an outside line by first dialing 9, for example, and then maybe dialing a different number for long distance? Do we want to use a credit card? And if so, what type of card are we going to use, such as AT&T, British Telecom, etc.? Let's go ahead and click on Cancel. And if the location you're dialing your modem from has call waiting, we need to tell Windows 95 how to disable it. A lot of times it's *70, depends on your own particular telephone system in whatever area of the world or the country that you happen to be in. We're going to go ahead and we're going to, since we don't have call waiting, we're going to leave this item blank and we'll leave it unchecked. Finally, it's saying the phone system at this location uses either tone dialing or pulse, and we use tone. So we'll select tone and then we'll select OK. If we want to, we can go ahead and look at the Diagnostics tab real quick by clicking on it, and we can see our two communications ports on this computer. COM1 has the modem, and COM2 our serial mouse. Let's go ahead and click on OK to go back to the control panel folder. Now that we have set up and configured our modem correctly, we can go ahead and do things like send a fax. We're finished with control panel for the moment, so let's close it down by clicking on its exit or X icon right here. And now let's open up a word processor such as Microsoft Wordpad, so we can go ahead and open up a document. We'll click on the Start button, go to Programs, go on over to Accessories, and on down and select the Wordpad mini word processor program that ships with Windows 95. And Wordpad comes up in a moment. And we have a blank document. We could go ahead and start typing if we wanted to and create a document all from scratch, or of course we could go up to the File menu and we could select Open. I'm going to open a new document that I've already created that we've worked with in a previous tape. Let's go ahead and select our C drive from the drop-down list and our Win95 folder, and we can open it up by double-clicking on it. In our folder, we should have a text file called Our Great Tips, and right now we're looking only at Word documents. Let's go ahead and click on the drop-down list for files of type, and let's select All Documents. And then we're going to look for a document called Our Great Tips. And I'm scrolling over to the right by clicking on the right arrow here on my scroll bar. And we're showing these files listed alphabetically. And here in the O's, we have a document entitled Our Great Tips. If we select it by clicking once on it, and then click on the Open button, we'll open up the document. And Wordpad is now asking me to save changes to the document I started typing in. I'm going to say no. And we'll bring up Our Great Tips. It's taking a moment. It has a picture in it, so that's why it takes a little bit longer for Wordpad to bring it up. And here it is. This is simply a document we've worked with previously. It talks a little bit about Microsoft Windows tips and tricks. And we have a little picture right over here to go along with some of the text. Well, if we wanted to simply print this out, we could come up to our toolbar and we could simply click on this little printer icon here. That would allow us to print. However, if we want to send a fax, we cannot use any of these icons. We have to go up to the File menu. We'll select File, and then we can select the word Print, or the menu option Print. Now, what we need to do is we need to change the type of printer. We're not going to use our regular printer because that would simply print out a hard copy. We want to select Microsoft Fax. And once we do that, we see some changes here. Notice the status is ready. The type is a Microsoft Fax driver. Notice our print range is all pages, or we can select from page 1 to page 1 if we only want a one page. We're going to select all pages. I believe the whole document is only 2 pages long. We can also select the number of copies that we wish to fax out, 1 or multiple copies. I'll leave it at 1. And if we come back up, there's a Properties button, and we can click on it to take a look at some of the properties of the Microsoft faxing. First is orientation. We can either have portrait or landscape. Since this is a normal 8.5 by 11 document, we'll leave it at portrait. Under paper size, we can choose either letter, legal, or other sizes of paper, or perhaps even envelopes. We can come down here to the drop-down, and we can select different types of letter formats. We can also choose paper source if we were going to actually print this instead of faxing it. Under graphics, we can choose dot per inch and grayscale. And as well, we can choose how the dark shading will be either dark or light. Now I'm going to leave everything at the default. Now we can go ahead and we can simply click on OK. And we're back at the print dialog. We've selected Microsoft Fax. Now we can simply click OK. And notice Wordpad says it's printing our great tips on Microsoft Fax. So it says it's printing, but what it really means is that it's getting ready to send a fax. And in a moment, we're going to find the compose new fax dialog. And here it is. We're going to leave this at dialing from our default location. And then we could check this box if we wanted to say that we're not using a portable computer, if we didn't want to see this dialog again, but we'll leave it unchecked. Let's go ahead and click on Next. The next item that we need to fill in is to whom we're sending this fax. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on Address Book. So we can make a permanent entry so that the next time we send a fax, it'll already be in our address book. I'm going to send this fax to Mr. Keystone. And we're going to go ahead and click down here on New, because this is a new entry. And the new entry is going to be an entry, it's going to be a fax entry as opposed to an entry for email on the Microsoft network. So we'll go ahead and put this entry right in our personal address book. And we'll select OK. And now we want to have a name that will show on our cover page. We're going to say Mr. Keystone. And the country code, of course, is United States. If we had a different area code, we'd go ahead and fill that in here. The area code is going to be the same. But now we need to fill in the proper fax number. And in this case, it happens to be 798-0802. Once we've entered in the proper fax number, we're essentially done. There is one option here, a mailbox if we were sending email. And also there's a checkbox that says dial area code, even though it's the same as mine. We don't want to do that, but if you did need to do that, you could check that box right here. We're going to select Add To. Notice that Mr. Keystone has now been added to our recipient list. We're going to select Mr. Keystone, and now we'll go ahead and click on the Next button. Now, Windows 95 Fax is asking us, do we want a cover page? We could say no, or we can say yes. If we say yes, we have 4 options that ship right out of the box. Of course, we could create other ones on our own. I'm going to go ahead and select For Your Information. This means the top of our cover page will say For Your Information. If it were confidential, of course, we could select confidential, or urgent or generic. We'll leave it at For Your Information. The next item is Fax Options, and we can click this button to change the time when the fax is sent and other options as well. Let's take a look at it real quick by clicking on it. And we can set fax properties, time to send the fax as soon as possible, or we could send it at specific times. Over on the right, message format, we can allow for it to be editable only, or not editable. And as far as the cover page, again, we selected For Your Information, and we'll leave it at that. Let's go ahead and click on OK. And now let's click on Next. We can enter in a subject, and we'll call it Windows 95 Tips and Tricks. And we can even enter a note, and we can start the note on the cover page. We can say, just thought you'd be interested in these cool tips. After we've entered in our note, we then have an option checkbox here. It says Start Note on Cover Page, and we'll leave that checked. And let's go ahead and click on Next. And now it says our fax is now ready. To send it, click Finish. So let's do that. And Wordpad is saying it's printing our great tips on the Microsoft fax. And in a moment, we'll see the progress. Notice up here in the upper left-hand corner, top of the screen, we're seeing a Microsoft Fax Status. It's telling us it's exactly what it's doing. Right now it's preparing cover page and scheduling the fax for transmission. Since we said send the fax immediately, it's going to go ahead and send it right now. If we had said send it at a later time, it would wait. And it's calling Mr. Keystone and initializing the modem. If you look down here in the right-hand corner next to the clock, you'll see some additional icons. Notice it says dialing phone, and over here it says I have one fax in the queue. If I double-click on this icon here, I can see my outgoing fax. It's showing me my fax that's from me, the subject, number of bytes, and when it's going to send it. And you can see up here, it's 80%, almost 80% done with page 1. So we can see the exact progress of how our fax is doing. Once it's done with page 1, it'll go on to page 2, and then we'll be finished. At any time, if we want to cancel the fax, we could do that by simply clicking on Hang Up. And we're at 40%, we're almost there. As soon as the fax has been completed, you'll see that this item here will go away, since the fax will be done. If we had other faxes waiting to go out, you'd see them lined up here as well. And we're at 100% on page 2. We should be just about finished. And page 2 is confirmed. Notice you can perform this action in any Windows program. And that's done. And we should see the outgoing fax finish up here too. Notice that outgoing fax is now complete, so it goes away. To get rid of this outgoing fax window here, we can simply close it down, or actually it's going to close itself down. So we've seen how we can very easily fax a document from any Windows or Windows 95 application. Next, let's see how we can get on that information superhighway using the Microsoft network. Before we go into the Microsoft network, let's go ahead and close down Wordpad. And we can do this easily by coming down to our taskbar and positioning our mouse pointer over the Wordpad and right mouse clicking and select Close. We're back at our desktop. Now let's go ahead and set up the Microsoft network. The Microsoft network is accessed through one of our desktop icons right here called the Microsoft network. By simply double-clicking on it, we can open it up. Since this is the first time that we'll have used the Microsoft network, we'll get the first time setup screen. And the Microsoft network window pops up. And it tells us a little bit about it, saying it opens up an exciting world of online information and entertainment. We get many things through Microsoft Network, or MSN, access to the internet, electronic mail and bulletin boards, latest headlines, weather, sports, and financial news, even a multimedia reference library, and other services as well. Down in the lower left-hand corner, if we're already a member and simply need to set up this Microsoft network on this computer, we could check this box. Since we're not a member, we've never logged on to the Microsoft network before, we're going to go ahead, leave it unchecked, and select OK. And we get another window. It says to ensure that we receive the best online access, the Microsoft network needs to know our area code and the first 3 digits of our phone number. Well, our area code happens to be 801 right now, and the first 3 digits of our phone number here happen to be 798. We'll go ahead and now click on OK. Microsoft Network needs to know this so it can get us a local access phone number so we don't have to make a toll call. And it's telling us the following number will be used to connect us to the Microsoft network. And it's a local 801 telephone number. If we have problems, we can try clicking the settings buttons. When we get connected, the Microsoft network will get us the latest product details and information about the Microsoft network's free trial offer, and it will update our list of local phone numbers. So let's click on Connect. And notice it's dialing. This is just to connect us to get a list of local numbers to connect to the Microsoft network. And a connections window pops up. It says that there was an error connecting. We may need to adjust some settings and try again. And we have different there are different options we can have, such as access numbers. We're going to go ahead and leave those alone since those were put in by the Microsoft network. We'll click on OK. There are dialing properties. Calling from default location. Let's go ahead and click on dialing properties. And we can go ahead and leave all of these at the default. I don't think we have any problem here. We'll go ahead and click on OK. Then there are modem settings. Notice we have our current modem selected, which is correct. We can look at settings by clicking on the command button. And it looks like things are okay. I might make my speaker volume slightly higher. Under the Connection tab, this is some advanced information that you really don't want to change unless you're sure about making the changes. It says wait for dial tone before dialing, cancel the call if not connected within 60 seconds. That's fine. Under Options, we have connection control, bring up the terminal window before dialing, bring up terminal after dialing, and we have dialing control for credit card tones. We're going to go ahead and leave everything as it is. And let's try it again by clicking the Try Again button. I hear a dial tone now, and I think we're going to be successful this time. Sounds like the modems are handshaking. This is a good sign. In a moment, I think we'll be connected. Notice in the lower right-hand corner on the taskbar, we get a simulated modem with blinking lights. If we right-click, it tells us we're now connected. If we just hold our mouse pointer over it, it tells us we're connected to the Microsoft network. And we can see a lot of details about the modem transmission that's going on in the background. And right now, the Microsoft network is starting a file transfer, updating our list of local phone numbers. This will take a moment. Again, we can kind of see some status. We double click on the modem. On the modem icon, we can see some more information graphically represented here about what's going on over our phone line. And we can even move this a little bit out of the way. And once that's been completed, we get disconnected, and now we get another Microsoft Network window telling us for information about the Microsoft Network, we can click the details and price buttons. At this point, we need to complete 3 steps in order to sign up and join the Microsoft Network. Step number 1 is we need to tell them our name and address. So let's click right here. I've gone ahead and already entered in all of our information. Once you've filled everything in, you can go ahead and click on OK. And notice that we get a little check mark placed next to the first step of telling them our name and address. Next, we have to select a way in which to pay. We'll click on this button. And we can choose MasterCard, Visa, or American Express. Let's say if we were to choose Visa, we then need to go in and enter a bank name, such as Citibank, and then a card number. Once our credit card information has been entered, we can go to the final step, which is reading the rules. We'll click on this button here. And there's a whole big bunch of text that you could go through and read, or you could read later, and you need to agree. If you don't agree, they won't let you get online. So we're going to say yes, we agree. And once that's done, we can simply go ahead and select Join Now. And there's only one access number that was found for our location, and if that's okay, we can go ahead and simply click the OK button. And this is the phone number that will be used for us to get online, and we can simply click Connect. And it's dialing once again. This time we will be online with the Microsoft network. When we connect, Microsoft Network will send our account information. And we're logged on, and we're connected with the Microsoft Network. We need to type a member ID and a password. Our member ID enables others to identify us when we're online. Member IDs cannot include spaces, examples, Holmes, or Sherlock_Holmes. Well, we're going to call ourselves Video Man. And we'll go ahead and type in a password. The password needs to be between 8 and 16 characters. We'll put in Keystone. Now we can select OK. This ID is already in use. Try a different one. I guess we need to be a little more creative. We'll say Video Man 7 and click OK. Hopefully that ID is not already being used. And it's not. Congratulations, we're now in Member. An icon has been installed on our desktop for our convenience, and we can click it any time we want to go online with the Microsoft Network. We'll now click on Finish. And we need to go ahead and sign in. So we need to remember, it's very important, you should write down your member ID and your password. However, don't give it out to anyone. This is simply for your own confidential use. Otherwise, people could get online and act as if they were you, and you'll be paying for it. And we can click Remember My Password so it'll send the information the next time we try to get online. And now, once we've typed in our member ID and password correctly, we can simply click on Connect, and we need to have the Microsoft Network redial to get back online. Once we first join, it kicks us off, and we need to formally get back online when we've already gotten a member ID and a password. So the modem is syncing up right now. In a moment, we should actually be online, and we can actually do stuff. We see the modem lights blinking in the lower right-hand corner, and it says we're connected to the Microsoft Network. Remember, when you're online, it's not the same as using your computer or even being on a network. It can sometimes be a bit slow. This is because we're using a telephone line. We have the online viewer come up, and it's preparing a title. Remember, being online is not the same as working on your standalone computer. Things generally take more time. We have a welcome window that pops up, and in a moment, we'll see the Microsoft Network opening welcome window. And now the display is in focus, and we can go ahead and we can choose to click behind the welcome window so we can look at some of our options in using the Microsoft Network. So notice here, we are in the Microsoft Network. We have, it's a regular window like other windows or other applications you might use in Windows 95. We have a menu bar with File, Exit, View, Tools, and Help. And then here, we have different options. Notice my mouse pointer changes to a hand with a finger, telling me that if I select this option, there's more information available. We have the Microsoft Network Today. We have electronic mail. These are all choices that we can make, different features of the system. Favorite places, member assistance, and of course, various different categories. So for example, if we want to check out Microsoft Network Today, I can simply select it by clicking on it, and that'll bring up that particular area. So the MSN Today area of the Microsoft Network presents us with various options, various items of interest, such as a great account offer for beta users, chat with author Jack Canfield, Rust chat, enter sweepstakes, and things like that. For example, if we click on enter our sweepstakes, MSN will open up this area about their particular sweepstakes rules and entry forms. If we were interested, we could simply double click, like on the sweepstakes rules, and notice its icon is that of a text file. It's going to go out and open up either Wordpad, or if we own Microsoft Word, it'll open up Word so that we can read this particular document. It's simply a document, just like any document you might work on your own computer. The only difference is we're viewing this all while we're online. This is not on our computer. This is physically over a telephone line. And we could maximize this, and we can get information about the new Microsoft Network sweepstakes. Once we're done reading it, we can simply close down our application by clicking on the X, and we're back in the Microsoft Network looking at the MSN beta forum window. We can close down this window, and we're back at MSN Today. If we want to close this down and go back and look at other areas of the Microsoft Network, we can simply close this window down, and we're back at the main screen. And one other thing I'll take a look at for a moment is categories. We can see all the different areas of interest that are available to you. For example, arts and entertainment, business and finance, computers and software, sports, health, and fitness. If we were to double click on one of these, we could take a look at some of the topics within these different areas. And again, it's simply a matter of finding what you're interested in, double clicking on that topic, and you'll just get more information on it. You can do this quite extensively. If we were interested in, for example, sports media, if we were to double click, we'd see all the information presented on sports media. Once we're done, we can go ahead and simply close down the windows that we have opened by selecting the X. And we don't want to disconnect. We'll go ahead and say no to remain connected. I'll show you something. Notice if you come down to the taskbar and the little icon that says MSN, Microsoft Network, if we right mouse click, we get some options. We can sign out, go to favorite places, or go to Microsoft Central, as well as find items and send mail. Let's click on go to Microsoft Network Central to bring up the main window. And we're back at Microsoft Network Central. Once we're done, we can either come down to the taskbar, right mouse click and select sign out, or come all the way up on the other side of the window to the file menu and again select sign out. And it says thank you for using MSN. Is it okay to disconnect? And we'll say yes. And we're then disconnected and we'll be offline. And that's the Microsoft Network. The next time we want to reconnect and get online with the Microsoft Network, we simply double click on the Microsoft Network icon, and that brings up the sign-in screen. The next thing we would do is simply click connect, and we'd be back online. In this fast-paced world of ours, we're often working in different locations, at the office, at home, or on the road. Until now, we had no way to synchronize different versions of files that we're working on. But now we have the Windows 95 briefcase. Okay. The first thing that we're going to do is to open up the My Computer icon. When you're using the briefcase utility, you need to keep a copy of the file that you're going to be working on in the briefcase at all times. This is a master copy, so to speak, the one which Windows 95 compares other files against. We have a file that we've worked on previously. That's on our C drive. And it's in our Win95 folder. It's called Our Great Tips. If we select a file and type the letter O, we'll jump to the first occurrence of O's, and here's Our Great Tips. So here we are in the Win95 folder window on our C drive of our computer. I'm going to go ahead and make sure I'm going to copy this file from this folder over to my floppy drive, my A drive. I'm going to do this by moving this window a little bit out of the way so that I can see my other window right here that shows my floppy drive. This window here, I'm going to actually close down. So now I can see I have my computer window over here and the Win95 folder here. If we hold down our Control key to make sure we're going to do a copy rather than a move, click and drag the file Our Great Tips and drop it over on the A drive, the 3.5-inch floppy. And notice we see Windows 95 is copying the file. In a moment, let's double click on the A drive so we can be sure that it's there. And this floppy I'm going to take on the road with me and make various changes to it throughout the next several days. I'm going to double click on the 3.5-inch floppy A drive. And notice that up here in the window, we have one file on our A drive, which we're going to take with us all on the road. It's called Our Great Tips. Now we need to keep a master copy of this document against which Windows 95 will compare the two different versions of the same file. Again, if we hold down our Control key to make sure we're going to do a copy rather than a move, and click and drag, we'll drag out of this window down to the desktop and drop it on my briefcase, and then we'll let go. And notice Windows 95 is copying the file. If we open up the My Briefcase icon by double-clicking on it, we'll now see Our Great Tips. And notice a few things about the briefcase. We can have several files in here, and over on the right it says Sync Copy In. This is where it's comparing against, and it's comparing against the copy of Our Great Tips on the A drive. So if any changes are made, it's going to go ahead and know, because it's going to compare against what's on our floppy drive. Notice the status. It's presently up to date. It also shows us a file size, the type of document, and when it was last modified. Let's go ahead and close down My Briefcase for the moment by clicking on the X. And let's go ahead now, we can open up Our Great Tips by double-clicking on it. And Windows 95 will go ahead, and it tells us that this file is too large for Notepad to open. Would we like to use Wordpad? Since it's a text file, the first option is to use Notepad. And we'll say sure, Wordpad is more than sufficient. And Wordpad will open up, and we'll see our document. We're reading off of our floppy drive, so it takes a moment. And here's our document, Our Great Tips. Well, let's say we're going to go ahead and instead of saying Microsoft Windows 95 README, let's say we want to go ahead and change the date. Let's say we want to make this all capitals, August 1995. And we can come down here as well, and we can type in, use a bold, italic, and underline. And we'll simply say Keystone Learning Systems, Inc. So we've made a couple of changes to our document, as you can see. Now it says August 95, and it says Keystone Learning Systems right above the graphic. Let's go ahead and save this. We're saving it down to our A drive. And we can pretend that we've been on the road for a while. We've made some major changes. And now we're going to come back into our office in a moment. And we want to make sure we have everything up to date. Once the file has been saved, we're going to go ahead and exit out of Wordpad. Okay, and the file's now saved. I'm going to click on the X to close down Wordpad. And I'm going to go ahead and clean up these windows. I'll close down this one, and we'll close down these two by clicking on the X while holding down the Shift key. Okay, let's go ahead and let's go into My Briefcase by double-clicking on it. And notice we still have the file Our Great Tips, but notice the status. It says Needs Updating. Okay, this is very handy. So we've gone ahead and we've been on the road, we've come back to the office, put the disk in the drive, double-clicked on My Briefcase, and now we understand that we need to update our file. Let's click on it once to select this file and go to the File menu. And let's now select Update. It's checking the briefcase, and the My Briefcase is coming up with an update message. It says the following files need to be updated. To change the update action, use the right mouse button to click the file you want to change. Well, if we go ahead and click our right mouse button, notice it says, which way do we want to replace? Do we want to replace the version that was done at 8:55 a.m. or do we want on the 9th, or do we want to replace it with one that was done at 1:44 p.m. on the 9th? So we can replace in either direction. The default is for the briefcase to replace the older file with the newer file, and that's exactly what we want to do. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click on Update. Notice we're going to replace this file here with this file here, and click Update. And it shows that it's updating. Once it completes, the status will change to up to date, and if we want to go ahead and look and see if it is indeed up to date, we can simply double click on the file that's located physically here in My Briefcase, open up Wordpad. This is not the file on the floppy drive. This is the file on our hard disk in the folder called My Briefcase. Let's see if those changes have taken effect. And they have. Notice the date is the date that we changed it to, August 95, as well as this title here that we entered, Keystone Learning Systems. The Briefcase utility has successfully synchronized the two files. I'm going to close down Word, and we'll go back to My Briefcase, close down My Briefcase, and get back to the desktop. You've just seen some of the valuable information services available in Windows 95. We showed you how to add, set up, and remove modems. We also showed you how you can send a fax directly out of a Windows program. We took a look at the brand new Microsoft Network, the online service provided by Microsoft. And finally, we took a look at how to synchronize files using the Briefcase utility.
You just learned advanced techniques of working with Windows 95. You learned all about OLE, object linking and embedding, and learned how to work with the good old-fashioned DOS command prompt. You learned some PC system management tools and about the new information services available in Windows 95.
Be sure to check out the 3 additional tapes in this series, Windows 95, special features, installation, and networking.
We hope you've enjoyed this training session and, more importantly, increased your knowledge and productivity. Keystone Learning Systems offers hundreds of courses, including MS Office, Novell Perfect Office, NetWare, Lotus Smart Suite, Lotus Notes, Power Builder, Corel Draw, PageMaker, and many, many more. Each is designed to accelerate your learning curve and increase your productivity. Each makes a nice addition to your computer training library. Call us today if you have any additional questions or would like to place an order. Our phone number in the United States and Canada is 1-800-748-4838. And if you're calling from somewhere else in the world, please dial 801-375-8680. Thank you.